The Ghost of the North, Chapter 1. When people say wolf, they usually picture a gray shadow in a pine forest. But the Arctic wolf is a different kind of predator, clean, pale, almost unreal. It moves through snow like a living silence, blending so perfectly with the tundra that it can look like a spirit more than an animal. That's why it earns the name Ghost of the North. It isn't just beautiful. It's built for a world that punishes weakness. Every step, every breath, every decision is shaped by cold, distance, and scarcity. The Arctic wolf lives in the high Arctic, spending its life north of the tree line on the polar tundra, where winter can feel endless and the landscape can stretch flat and empty for miles. This is not a place where you can make mistakes. In these conditions, ferocious doesn't mean reckless, it means disciplined. The most dangerous Arctic wolves aren't the loud ones, they're the calm ones. They conserve energy, read the land, and commit only when the moment is right. A huge part of their mystique is their coat, thick, insulating, and often bright white, though some can appear creamy or pale gray. The color isn't fashion, it's camouflage that erases their outline against ice and snow. Underneath, the fur is built in layers, a soft undercoat to trap warmth and longer guard hairs that shed moisture and snow. Even their bodies follow cold climate design. Smaller ears and a shorter muzzle help reduce heat loss, because exposed surface area is the enemy in brutal wind. When you look at an Arctic wolf close up, you're seeing an animal engineered by winter. Their feet are another secret weapon. Arctic wolves have furry paws that help insulate them from ice and improve traction on snow. That matters because the tundra isn't a soft blanket, it can be crusted, sharp, and unstable. Every mile traveled costs calories. So nature favors animals that can move efficiently without sinking, slipping, or losing heat. In a place where food can disappear for long stretches, simply traveling well is a survival advantage. The Ghost of the North is not only a hunter, it's a long-distance specialist. And that endurance is part of what makes them feel ancient. Many predators rely on sudden bursts of speed. Arctic wolves rely on time. They can track across enormous distances, pushing a hunt forward not through frantic chasing, but through persistence. This is the type of predator that doesn't need to win quickly, it just needs to keep going longer than anything else. In the Arctic, endurance is power. A pack that can keep moving, keep searching, keep testing the landscape will eventually find an opening. One of the most fascinating things about Arctic wolves is how they react to humans. In some places, especially remote areas where humans have been rare, Arctic wolves can be unusually unafraid. They may watch from a distance, then approach cautiously and curiously instead of immediately fleeing. That isn't friendliness, it's unfamiliarity. In a region where humans historically weren't a constant threat, the wolves never fully learned the same fear response that many other wild animals develop around people. That steady eye contact is part of why encounters feel intense. It's calm assessment, not aggression. But don't confuse calm with harmless. The Arctic wolf is still an apex predator designed to survive. It has strong jaws, sharp senses, and a mind tuned to patterns, movement, weakness, hesitation. Its real weapon isn't only strength, it's decision-making. In a world where injury can mean death, wolves don't pick fights they can't afford. That makes them careful, and that carefulness can look like intelligence because it is. Even the most dramatic-looking Arctic wolf is usually conserving risk, not seeking it. What makes the Arctic wolf so compelling is the blend of opposites. Beauty and brutality, elegance and hunger, silence and force. The white fur reads like purity, but it's also a cloak for predation. The calm expression reads like peace, but it's also the calm of an animal that understands the math of survival. This isn't a creature that survives by being mean. It survives by being correct about energy, timing, terrain, and teamwork. That's why the Ghost of the North feels like a legend that nature forgot to hide. So when you say you're sold on the Arctic wolf, you're reacting to something real. The Arctic wolf isn't just a pretty animal in the snow. It's the northern blueprint of survival. Built for cold, shaped by scarcity, and refined by time. Before we even talk history, lineage, or myths, this first truth stands on its own: this wolf is not trying to impress you. It is simply the product of an environment so extreme that only the most complete predators can endure it. And that is exactly what makes it unforgettable. How far back do they date? Chapter 2. To understand the Arctic wolf, you have to step far beyond modern time and into the Ice Age world that shaped it. Wolves as a species are not recent animals. Genetic and fossil evidence shows that true wolves emerged roughly 300,000 years ago, evolving from earlier canid ancestors in Eurasia. These early wolves lived in a harsher, colder, and more dangerous world than the one we know today, sharing the landscape with massive herbivores and formidable predators. From the very beginning, wolves were shaped by endurance, cooperation, and adaptability rather than brute force alone. As the Ice Age progressed, the planet entered cycles of deep cold. Glaciers expanded, sea levels dropped, and vast regions of the northern hemisphere transformed into tundra and steppe. During this time, wolves spread widely, following prey across continents. One of the most important events in their history was the formation of the Bering Land Bridge, a wide corridor of land connecting Asia and North America. Cold-adapted wolves crossed this bridge tens of thousands of years ago, carrying with them the traits that favored survival in frozen landscapes. These ancient wolves were not yet Arctic wolves as we know them, but they were the foundation. Natural selection began to carve them into specialists. Wolves that wasted energy, overheated, or failed to cooperate didn't last long. The ones that survived were those that could travel immense distances, endure hunger, and hunt as a coordinated unit. Over time, as populations became isolated in the far north, traits that favored life in extreme cold became dominant. Thick insulating coats, compact features, and efficient metabolisms weren't luxuries, they were necessities. By roughly 50,000 to 100,000 years ago, wolves living in the high Arctic were already distinct in behavior and appearance. They occupied a world where trees disappeared, prey migrated seasonally, and darkness could last for months. These conditions didn't just shape their bodies. They shaped their psychology. Arctic wolves evolved to be cautious, deliberate, and resilient. Unlike predators in richer environments, they could not afford constant conflict or reckless aggression. Survival depended on making the right choice more often than not. It's important to understand that Arctic wolves are not living fossils frozen in time. They are part of the modern gray wolf lineage, not a separate ancient species. What makes them special is not that they stopped evolving, but that they continued evolving under some of the most extreme conditions on Earth. While many Ice Age predators went extinct when climate shifted and megafauna disappeared, Arctic wolves survived by remaining flexible. They adapted their prey choices, movement patterns, and pack strategies rather than specializing too narrowly. When you look at an Arctic wolf today, you are seeing the result of tens of thousands of years of refinement. Its white coat reflects sunlight and blends with snow. Its thick fur traps heat and sheds ice. Its body is powerful but not overly heavy, allowing it to travel far without burning excess energy. These traits are not accidental, and they did not appear overnight. Each generation that survived passed on a slightly better version of the blueprint, until the Arctic wolf became what it is now, a predator perfectly tuned to the margins of habitability. This deep history is why Arctic wolves feel ancient, even when standing right in front of you. They are living echoes of a time when survival was not guaranteed, when the land itself tested every creature daily. Their lineage carries the memory of mammoths on the horizon, endless ice, and migrations that spanned continents. While the world has warmed and changed, the Arctic wolf still lives in conditions that resemble that distant past more than the modern world most animals know. So when we ask how far back Arctic wolves date, the answer is not just a number. Yes, their lineage stretches back tens of thousands of years, rooted in Ice Age wolves that crossed frozen continents. But more importantly, their way of life is ancient. The strategies they use today, endurance, cooperation, restraint, are the same strategies that allowed their ancestors to survive when the world was colder, harsher, and far less forgiving. The Arctic wolf is not simply a wolf in the snow. It is a survivor carrying Ice Age wisdom into the present. The Arctic wolf and the dire wolf, myth, memory, and the North. When people see an Arctic wolf for the first time, many feel like they've seen it before. Not in nature, but in story. The resemblance between the Arctic wolf and the dire wolf of legend is striking. Pale fur, powerful build, calm eyes, and an ancient presence that feels larger than the animal itself. This connection isn't accidental. It comes from something deeper than fiction-shared environmental pressure, shared symbolism, and shared human memory of northern survival. In Game of Thrones, the dire wolf is the sigil of House Stark, rulers of the North. This choice was not random. The North in the story is defined by cold, scarcity, and endurance. It is a land where survival is earned, not given. The dire wolf represents strength without excess, loyalty without spectacle, and power rooted in restraint. These are not traits invented for fantasy. They are traits that exist in real northern predators, especially the Arctic wolf. The real dire wolf, an extinct species that lived during the Ice Age, was larger and heavier than modern wolves, built for confronting massive prey. Though Arctic wolves are not direct descendants of dire wolves, they evolved under similar pressures: cold climates, limited food, and vast open land. Nature often repeats successful designs when faced with similar challenges. Thick fur, broad skulls, dense muscle, and a grounded stance are solutions to the same problem: how to survive when the environment shows no mercy. This is where the Arctic wolf becomes a living echo of the dire wolf. The dire wolf vanished when the Ice Age ended and megafauna disappeared. The Arctic wolf survived by adapting rather than specializing. It remained flexible, efficient, and cooperative. That survival makes it more than a reminder of the past. It makes it proof that endurance outlasts brute force. When audiences see the stark dire wolf and feel that it fits, they're responding to an instinct shaped long before modern storytelling existed. The Stark family's connection to the dire wolf mirrors the Arctic wolf's way of life. The Starks are not flashy rulers. They value unity, family, and responsibility over ambition. Like wolves, they operate as a pack. Leadership comes from experience, not dominance. Decisions are measured, not impulsive. This is especially true of Jon Snow, who grows up shaped by the North Quiet. Observant, restrained, and loyal to something larger than himself. These qualities align far more closely with a northern wolf than with the fire and spectacle of dragons. Jon Snow's lineage later reveals ties to the Targaryens, a family symbolized by dragons, creatures of fire, dominance, and destruction. This contrast reinforces the symbolism. Dragons conquer quickly and burn brightly. Wolves endure. The Arctic wolf doesn't overwhelm its environment. It survives within it. In this way, the wolf becomes a symbol of balance rather than conquest, and the North becomes a place where survival matters more than power. Human cultures have always associated wolves with northern lands. Not because of fantasy, but because that's where wolves thrived alongside early humans. For thousands of years, people living in cold regions observed wolves surviving the same storms, hunting the same prey, and raising families under the same harsh conditions. Over time, wolves became symbols of resilience, kinship, and quiet authority. These symbols carried forward into myth, legend, and eventually modern storytelling. What makes the Arctic wolf so compelling is that it doesn't need exaggeration. Its presence alone carries weight. It doesn't rush, posture, or waste energy. It watches. It waits, it moves when movement matters. That calm confidence is what people recognize in the dire wolf of legend. Not aggression but inevitability. Not chaos but control. So when people feel that the Arctic wolf looks like a dire wolf from Game of Thrones, they are responding to something real. The show did not invent that connection, it rediscovered it. The Arctic wolf represents the same ancient truth that the dire wolf symbolizes in story. In the coldest places on Earth, survival belongs not to the loudest or strongest, but to the most unified, disciplined, and enduring. That is why the ghost of the North feels timeless. It carries the past forward, alive and watching, in the snow. The diet of the Arctic wolf, what they hunt and why. Chapter 4. The Arctic wolf lives in a world where food is never guaranteed. There are no abundant forests, no constant prey, and no easy meals. Every calorie matters, and every hunt carries risk. Because of this, the Arctic wolf is not wasteful. It does not chase everything it sees. It studies the landscape, reads movement patterns, and chooses targets carefully. In the high Arctic, survival depends less on speed and more on judgment. The most valuable prey for Arctic wolves is the musk ox. Musk oxen are large, slow-moving herbivores that carry enough meat and fat to feed an entire pack for days. But they are not easy targets. When threatened, musk oxen form defensive circles with their horns facing outward, protecting calves in the center. Adult musk oxen can seriously injure or kill a wolf with a single strike. Because of this, Arctic wolves rarely attack healthy adults head-on. Instead, they test the herd, look for weakness, and wait for separation. The goal is not domination, it is efficiency with minimal risk. Caribou, also known as reindeer, are another major food source. Unlike muskoxen, caribou are fast, alert, and constantly moving. Wolves do not rely on short bursts of speed to catch them. They rely on distance and pressure. A pack may follow a herd for hours or even days, slowly wearing down a vulnerable individual through fatigue. This kind of hunting requires coordination and patience. Each wolf plays a role in guiding the movement of the prey until exhaustion creates an opening. In this environment, endurance becomes the true weapon. When large prey is unavailable, Arctic wolves switch to survival foods. Arctic hares are a common fallback, along with lemmings, birds, and bird eggs during nesting seasons. These smaller meals do not sustain a pack for long, but they keep wolves alive during lean periods. Arctic wolves are opportunistic without being reckless. They will also scavenge from carcasses left behind by other predators or animals that died naturally. In a land where death is common, nothing goes to waste. Feast and famine define the rhythm of Arctic wolf life. Wolves may go days or even weeks without a successful large kill. During these periods, they conserve energy by resting more, traveling efficiently, and avoiding unnecessary conflict. When a hunt finally succeeds, they eat as much as they can, often gorging to store fat that will sustain them through the next uncertain stretch. This cycle is not cruelty, it is the reality of life at the edge of habitability. Hunting in the Arctic is as much about risk management as it is about strength. A single injury can mean death, not because the wound itself is fatal, but because it prevents a wolf from keeping up with the pack or participating in hunts. Arctic wolves do not charge blindly. They calculate. They observe how prey moves, how the terrain shapes the chase, and when the moment is right to commit. This restraint is often mistaken for hesitation, but it is actually precision. What makes the Arctic wolf's diet so revealing is how closely it ties into their social structure. Large prey requires teamwork. No single wolf can bring down a muskox or pressure a caribou herd alone. Success depends on coordination, communication, and trust within the pack. Each hunt reinforces unity because survival is shared. When the pack eats, it eats together. When food is scarce, the pack endures together. The Arctic wolf does not hunt for sport or excess. It hunts because survival demands it, and it hunts in a way that minimizes risk to the group. This balance between hunger and restraint is what allows wolves to persist in a landscape that offers no mercy. The ghost of the North is not defined by how often it kills, but by how wisely it chooses to hunt. The unity of the pack. Chapter 5 in the Arctic, survival is not an individual achievement. The environment is too harsh, the distance is too great, and the risks too high for any wolf to endure alone. This is why the Arctic wolf pack functions as a family first and a hunting unit second. Unity is not sentimental, it is practical. Every member of the pack contributes to survival. And every member depends on the group to endure the long winters and scarce food that define life in the high north. When pups are born, they are completely helpless. They cannot see, cannot hear clearly, and cannot regulate their body temperature. The mother remains close to the den, nursing and keeping the pups warm, while the father takes on the role of provider and guardian of the surrounding area. This division of roles is not rigid dominance, it is cooperation. Each parent does what is most effective for the survival of the young and the stability of the pack. As the pups grow stronger, care becomes shared. Both parents bring food, defend the den, and guide the young through early lessons in movement and social behavior. Older siblings or related pack members often help guard and interact with the pups, creating a network of protection and teaching. This extended family structure dramatically increases survival rates in an environment where a single mistake can be fatal. In the Arctic, raising young is not the job of one or two individuals, it is a collective effort. Discipline within the pack is subtle and measured. Arctic wolves do not rely on constant violence to maintain order. Instead, they use body language, positioning, eye contact, and brief corrective gestures to guide behavior. This keeps injuries rare, which is crucial in a land where even minor wounds can threaten survival. Pups learn boundaries through communication rather than fear, shaping them into adults who understand cooperation as the foundation of life in the pack. Unity also extends to how the pack treats weaker or injured members. While the Arctic is unforgiving, packs have been observed protecting and supporting members that are temporarily weakened, allowing them to recover when possible. This is not compassion in a human sense, it is a survival strategy. A pack that preserves its members maintains hunting strength knowledge, and continuity. Experience matters in the Arctic, and older wolves often carry vital knowledge about migration routes, hunting grounds, and seasonal patterns. What makes Arctic wolf unity so powerful is that it is built on necessity rather than dominance. Leadership comes from experience and trust, not constant aggression. Decisions about movement, hunting, and den locations are shaped by the wolves best suited to read the environment. This creates stability. Packs that fracture or turn on themselves do not last long in the Arctic. Unity is not optional, is the condition for survival. The image of the lone wolf is a myth that does not fit the reality of the Arctic. In this environment, the pack is the organism. Each wolf is a part of a larger whole, moving and surviving together. This collective strength is what allows Arctic wolves to raise their young, endure long periods without food, and navigate a landscape that would overwhelm solitary predators. The ghost of the North is not defined by isolation, it is defined by unity. Behavior, territory, and humans. Chapter 6. Arctic wolves live in some of the most expansive territories of any land predator on Earth. Their ranges can stretch across hundreds or even thousands of square miles of tundra, ice, and open plain. Territory exists not as a stage for constant conflict, but as a way to avoid it. Packs mark boundaries with scent and howling, so neighboring packs can recognize occupied land and reduce the chance of dangerous encounters. In a place where injury can mean death, avoiding unnecessary fights is a matter of survival. Despite being apex predators, Arctic wolves are not naturally aggressive toward humans. In fact, they are among the least likely wolves to attack people. Because human presence in the high Arctic has historically been sparse, Arctic wolves never developed the same deep fear of humans seen in wolves that lived near settlements. This lack of fear is often misread as boldness or threat. In reality, most Arctic wolf encounters involve calm observation followed by disengagement. The wolf assesses the unfamiliar figure, then moves on. Humans are not part of their natural prey, and there is no evolutionary advantage to treating people as targets. The idea that wolves constantly fight to become leaders is another myth. Arctic wolf packs are usually family groups led by the breeding pair, who are simply the parents of most pack members. Leadership comes from experience and familiarity with the land, not from violent dominance. There is no constant internal warfare for control, because such conflict would weaken the pack and reduce survival odds. Younger wolves that reach maturity and seek their own mates typically leave to form new packs rather than challenge their parents. This dispersal maintains stability within the group. Competition over mates within the pack is minimal. Arctic wolves do not regularly attempt to steal or dominate other wolves' partners. Breeding is generally limited to the main pair, and other adults suppress breeding behavior or leave to establish new territories. This reduces tension and keeps the pack focused on collective survival rather than internal rivalry. In an environment as demanding as the Arctic, unity is more valuable than individual ambition. Arctic wolves maintain social order primarily through communication rather than violence. Body posture, ear position, tail movement, and eye contact convey intent and status. Subtle gestures correct behavior long before conflicts escalate. This system minimizes injury, preserving the physical health of pack members. The calmer demeanor often observed in Arctic wolves is not passivity, it is efficiency. Every ounce of energy saved and every injury avoided increases the pack's chances of enduring the long winter. In rare and extreme circumstances such as severe starvation, illness, or provocation, any wild predator could behave unpredictably. However, documented cases of Arctic wolves attacking humans are extraordinarily rare to non-existent. When conflict does occur between wolves, it is more likely to involve territory disputes with other packs rather than interactions with people. The Arctic wolf's relationship with humans is defined more by distance and caution than hostility. The behavioral pattern of the Arctic wolf reflects a deeper truth about survival in extreme environments. Power is not measured by aggression alone. It is measured by restraint, coordination, and the ability to avoid unnecessary risk. The ghost of the North survives not because it seeks confrontation, but because it understands when confrontation is worth the cost.